What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shooky from Shook Earth Media, and as you guys could see from my Pyramid Head figurine back there, and the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack I also added back there. Huge Silent Hill fan. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. Video games or movies or anything. Movies are okay, but the games are what I love. Silent Hill 2, this is one of my favorite pieces of art in general, of any type. So, huge fan, and I thought it might be fun to do a ranking of the Silent Hill games. I recently did my Resident Evil game ranking, and I thought it might be fun just to do the same thing for the Silent Hill series. Now, before we get into that, I will just say, Resident Evil, I'm a huge fan of the atmosphere, the horror. I will say, narratively, it's not anywhere near the same, artistic capacity of Silent Hill to me. But it does have better gameplay in general. So we're going to be talking more about the story aspects here. We'll touch on gameplay here and there, but this is more about the story and what the goal of the artistic goals of the game are. So that's what I'm ranking these games based off of. So we'll just start with the bottom, and I will say I like all these games. So there's none of these I'm saying are bad. It's just ranking, right? So at the bottom of the list, we got Silent Hill Homecoming. Now, this is the only game on the list that was developed by an American studio, and the rest were, the first four, of course, developed in Japan. The others were developed in Europe, but this one was the one developed by an American studio, and it took a lot of cues from the films. Now, the first film, I do enjoy it. It's fine. It's good. I like they really did a great job of bringing the monsters into the film, but artistically it's very different from the games. It kind of takes all the monsters out of context, whereas in the games they're symbolic of people's fears, of the dark side of people's psyche. There's a very specific meaning to most of the monsters, and in the film they're just taken out of context and just used as generic movie monsters, which, it's fine. They actually did a great job at, Pyramid Head, just the costume, amazing, and it still holds up to this day. So I do appreciate, from an effects standpoint, what they did, but from an artistic standpoint, a lot of the meaning is just completely gone. So they really took a lot of cues from the films, right? I mean, they have Pyramid Head in it when they really... he's the boogeyman. It's not exactly the Pyramid Head, but they got Pyramid Head in it. They got the nurses, even though the nurses had a very specific meaning in Silent Hill 2 and never appeared in any of the other ones. Well, they're in the first one, but they're not, the same scantily clad nurses, So it's really a shame, in my opinion, that they did all that, and they also used the same effects when it transfers to the other world. It had the whole, peeling walls and stuff, and that looks great in the films, but it's just not from the games at all, and it just feels out of place in the game universe. So it took too many cues from the films for me, for my liking. Now, the story itself is not bad, actually. I really like when the soldier character that you play as goes home for the first time and he talks to his mother. There's really great scenes in here. Gameplay wise, it does improve some of the combat, and it's a little bit more visceral. You get to see the actual cuts when you slice a creature. You get to see the blood on it, and some of the effects in that case were good. But in general, it's very linear. There's not a lot in the way of exploration or puzzle solving. There's a little bit here and there, a couple riddles. It's a little bit disappointing in that regard, and some of the boss battles are just not my favorites. So, so I like that game, though, overall. But it does have a lot of technical issues on PC. But, overall, I'm glad I played it. It is good overall, so I do enjoy it. Right above that, we got Silent Hill Downpour. This is the most recent installment. I'm leaving off Book of Memories because I haven't played it, but it's a dungeon crawler game. It's not really a Silent Hill horror game, so it's left off this list, but it would probably be at the bottom if I did play it. Silent Hill Downpour is a game I did enjoy quite a lot. It is unique in the franchise in that it has an open world structure. And it's not exactly open world, but it has side quests. You're wandering the town. You have missions to go certain places, and there are places you can explore in the middle. And I liked the side quests that they had, and the attention to detail in the environment was cool. The atmosphere of this foggy town, always great. I will say the creatures were a bit generic. That's the biggest complaint, is that the creature design was not up to snuff with the rest of the series, and that's such a central aspect of the series. It's something that can't be overlooked. So it's still a decent story. I really like the prisoner character they had, and you learn about his past, and there's revelations about what happened to him, and it's overall it's a satisfying story. And they had some of the coolest like otherworld sections in this game. There's like a lot of chase scenes when it's otherworlds. It's very different from the others in terms of its presentation. So I would almost prefer if it wasn't a Silent Hill game. If it was just called something else, I'd probably like it even more. But it tried new things. It didn't just try to replicate the formula. I like how the weapons are dealt with. Like the melee weapons, they break over time, and you can only carry so many weapons at any given time. But the issue with that is that you have these side quests where you get weapons at the end, and then you just can't really hold on to them very much. So that's the thing, is like, why do the side quests other than just for completion's sake? So I did enjoy the side quests, though. There's really cool ones. Like there's one that involves a mirror, and the enemies only show up in the mirror. And I love that mission. It's very memorable. So there's a lot of great aspects of this game. There's a side quest in a movie theater that's really cool. There's a lot of great stuff in the Downpour game, so I do recommend it overall if you haven't played it. So it's definitely worth a play. And it has some cool like lore stuff with Silent Hill as well. So I did enjoy it. Above Downpour, I put Shattered Memories. Now this is... Shattered Memories is like a alternate universe version of the first game. So it doesn't take place in the Silent Hill timeline, and it doesn't really have a lot to do with the rest of the series. It just kind of uses that as a jumping off point. And it has some unique aspects where there's like a lot of psychological aspects to it. Like the frame story is your character speaking with a therapist, and your answers to the therapist will change some of the outcome. And it's like the game is trying to psychoanalyze you as it goes. And I really enjoyed that aspect. And of course, the psychology of the franchise is what stands out more than anything. So I really like bringing that to the forefront. Now, this game, I will say it's probably the least scary Silent Hill game to me. Because, you're wandering around, exploring areas, and you don't get attacked except for specific action sequences, and these sequences are really just repetitive chase scenes. So I didn't really care for them, and the monsters, again, eh. But it's the psychology that really gets me with this that I really enjoyed. So again, it's not very scary, and it's a little short on puzzle solving. So in terms of gameplay, it's a little disappointing. But I like the story aspects, what they were going for. And there's rumblings that they're going to do a sequel to it, so I hope so. I really want them to. Because it would be interesting to see how they would evolve this for the next game. So I like Silent Hill Shattered Memories quite a bit, so recommend it for everybody. Right above that, I put Silent Hill Origins. Now, of the post-Konami developed games, this is the most like Silent Hill. So it doesn't take too many risks. The biggest risk is that the other world, instead of being a place that you travel to without intending to, you have to go to the other world. Like, you phase through mirrors into the other world, and I really like this mechanic. You have to use it to get around certain areas. There's a wall in the world, and then you go into the other world version, and you can walk right through, or vice versa. So it works. There's great puzzles. It's creepy. There's a decent story there, and it sets up the cult stuff in the first game. Now here's my thing with the cult stuff. The cult stuff to me is really just a MacGuffin. The cult stuff to me is not really the focus of the series. It's just kind of a MacGuffin that allows all that to happen. So for me, the cult stuff, setting all that up, is not really as interesting as the psychology, but at least in this game we have the main character realizing something about themselves. I mean, that's really the formula is we have a character that finds out things about themselves. There's like 1 in 3, or 1 doesn't really have that, but the rest of them kind of do. So I really enjoy that aspect. In this game, it has some really memorable parts. It's got like a stage that's cool, some cool riddles and puzzles and stuff, and the other world element to me is very strong, and I enjoy it. So yeah, I like Origins. It's a good one. So above Origins, I put PT. Now this is the playable teaser. Or playable trailer, I guess. It was the preview to the Kojima Productions developed sequel called Silent Hills that was being planned. And unfortunately that got canceled as Konami and Kojima had a bit of a split. And we've been hearing rumors ever since that, oh, they're working it out. They're getting back to... I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I mean? So, but this playable teaser, man, it's one of the scariest games ever made. I really like it's very influential as well. There's so many games that took so many cues from this, including like Visage and a whole lot of independent horror titles. Took a lot of inspiration from this. You have the whole, shifting environment, the psychological aspect where you're looping through the same environment. It changes. There's creepy stuff. There's like a fetus in the kitchen sink, okay, or the bathroom sink is like really disturbing, dude. I really like that. So it's scary, jump scares, great. It's really off-putting, it's disturbing, and the maze-like, crypt aspect of it really works. So I'm a big fan of the playable teaser. Now, I don't really think that this would have been representative of what the game would have ended up being, and I can only imagine what it ended up being. I'm a little skeptical, honestly. We can get into that in a second. But I will say, just overall, this PT game, it really doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game to me. It has the psychological aspect, but it feels more like a traditional ghost story. We have this ghost Lisa that's haunting the place. We have discussions of, a father like murdering the family and killing himself and stuff like that. And then it feels like they're haunting this place. That's not really what Silent Hill is. It's more like the underbelly of somebody's psyche brought into reality, like manifested, and their fears are turned into monsters and stuff like that. So it's not really like the people that are alive that go to Silent Hill are the ones haunting the place. It's not like dead people are haunting it, although there's some aspects of that as well, like the dogs and stuff are because the girl from the first one was very afraid of dogs, so they're always in it. But, in general, it's really, this feels more like a ghost story to me, but it's such a great game and it's so influential in its own right that it has to be up on this list. So, now if you have Half-Life Alyx, the VR game, there is a VR version, and I can't do it. I tried it, and I noped out pretty fast. But there are, the puzzles in this game are kind of esoteric, so it's not like riddles where you can figure out using logic and reason. It's just kind of trial and error. So I'm not so much into that, but as far as like a playable teaser goes, it's excellent. It's amazing, and I can only imagine what it could have been. I mean, I'm mixed feelings on Kojima in general. I feel like his writing is really has the subtlety of a sledgehammer to the face. And Silent Hill kind of requires a lot of subtlety. Now, we would have had Guillermo del Toro working on the game as well, and I feel like his style is a little bit more suited to the Silent Hill formula. So I would have loved to see that collaboration, and I'm very curious. The little bits of gameplay we did get to see from it had the PT like maze-like thing going on, which I think would have really worked, and it had some of those abstract puzzles. But that plus the survival horror gameplay would have been really cool, and I really wish it happened. I think we all wish that it happened. But anyways, moving on with the list. Above PT, I put the first Silent Hill. To me, they didn't quite figure out what Silent Hill really was at this point, and it wasn't until the second game that it was really solidified. And in this first one, they kind of spent a lot of time on the whole cult aspect, which really, like I said, it's just a MacGuffin for the rest of the series. It's really just like, this is why this place is so dark and twisted. Although they add more lore in the second game, that it really, this land had a holy aspect to the native people, and then it became corrupted by disease that was brought over by the settlers, and that it makes a lot of sense to me. And the whole cult aspect really just ties into the corruption that was brought with the disease. So, but in general, the plot being around the cult aspects, you know, I'm not as big a fan of, but there is a lot. I mean, they really did work out so much in this first game. You know, it really kind of is fully formed. You got the atmosphere, you got the other world, you got the riddles, some really great riddles in this one. You got a lot of spooky monsters. Now, there's some monsters I'm not as into, like the pterodactyl guys. I didn't really feel like they weren't doing it for me. They weren't scary. But, I mean, then you got the, like, boss battle in the carousel. That's just so memorable. And you got the multiple endings. That's really cool. So there's a lot going on in this game that I really like a lot. So it is amazing. And it's essential playing. Okay, so above that, I put Silent Hill 4. Now, to me, Silent Hill 4, I think it's the scariest one. There's just so much, like, in it. There's memorable parts, like in the hospital, you go into one room and there's just, like, a big face looking in. Oh my god, dude. Some of the biggest, like, nope moments in the whole series is in Silent Hill 4. So, I really like how twisted it is, and how I was unpredictable, really, what was going to happen with it. So I really like it. They did some new things with this. They have like a hub world apartment, so it doesn't take place in Silent Hill proper. You just kind of travel to it through these tunnels in the apartment. I really like the aspect of the apartment. It's like this place he's locked in, and he's dealing with, there are like ghosts in this one, actually. And it's like this serial killer guy who's buried in a wall that is the main villain. And he's the main villain, right? So I like that story aspect and bringing the victims into it. And really, it's this feeling of an apartment being locked in and the outside world coming in and corrupting it that is really appealing from a story standpoint. Why I wouldn't rank it higher is just because there's basically like 4 levels and they get repeated 3 times. And there's nothing wrong with that formula. It just feels like a little less content than is in the other Silent Hill games. And so that's the only reason that I didn't rank it higher, because this is one that I replay all the time. I really enjoy it. I got it live streamed on this channel if you want to see me playing it. But yeah, I like this game. It's a bit more action-oriented than the other ones. There's a little bit less, like, trying to avoid enemies. You're kind of just killing most of the enemies in this game. And there's inventory management, which I feel like should be a part of the series. Previous games and later games, you just kind of have this infinite inventory. I would like to see more of a Resident Evil type of aspect, where you only have limited space. So I really like Silent Hill 4. It's one of the spookiest. I like the serial killer aspect. It's unique in the series. I really enjoy it. So above Silent Hill 4, we have Silent Hill 3. Now, this one is a direct sequel to the first game, and it involves Heather, who is one of my favorite, like, video game protagonists, and she's the only character in the Silent Hill series that goes to Silent Hill on purpose. She goes there on a quest for vengeance. The movie version, the Silent Hill Revelations, is one of the worst movies I ever sat through. I hate it. And they made it a rescue mission instead, and that just so bastardized her character, man. And she was just getting, like, saved the whole movie. She needed to be saved the whole time, and it's so annoying. But in Silent Hill 3, she's ruthless. She goes there on a quest for bloody vengeance, and that is exactly what the cult wants her to do, because they want her to become, at the end of Silent Hill 1, they're trying to make her into to spawn the god that they're praying to, the devil, basically. So they want her to become that, and they set her on this quest for bloody vengeance entirely on purpose. She plays entirely into their hands, and I really love that story aspect. And she's the only one in the franchise that goes to Silent Hill on purpose, and I love her for that. So, mad respect. This game has some of the most creative scares in it. And, while story-wise it is more about the cult stuff than the psychology, there is a lot of psychology stuff about motherhood and, and a lot of subtle imagery there. So there is a lot of that artistic, symbolic stuff going on that I love. So Silent Hill 3 does have that, but it is more about the cult stuff. But it works for me because I like the character, and it has some of the greatest scares, and it has, some really great elements to it. And at the top of the list, as you probably already guessed, it is Silent Hill 2. Now, this is the one, if you only play one of these games, Silent Hill 2 is the one. Silent Hill 2, to me, will always stand the test of time as a work of art. They really, when they were developing it, they sat out to create a great story that will stand the test of time, more than worrying about the gameplay, more than they worried about setting any sort of trends, more than they were even worried about scaring the player. It was about telling an amazing story, and they created some of the most iconic monsters of any horror thing, and the symbolism in all the monsters, once you know the full story, which I won't spoil here because I'm such a big fan. Once you know the full story and you understand the psychology of the monsters, it becomes scarier to think about than it is to actually play it. Once you understand what is going on under the surface here, every time I play this game, I notice new things. Every time I think about it, it gets under my skin, man. I can't shake this game. The soundtrack is incredible. We haven't talked about the soundtrack yet, but the music is the living, breathing soul of the series. Akira Yamaoka's amazing soundtrack work, some of the best soundtrack in any video game or movie or anything. I mean, he really brought the audio design as well, and everything, the atmosphere. It's really, bar none, this is really what all horror games should be aiming to do. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible, and the amount of the emotional complexity in the music is really profound. It's not just horror, it's a great tragedy as well, and in addition to tragedy, I mean, there's more than that in it. There's mystery in it. There's there's hope in there as well. There's all these emotions in the same song, and it's so powerful, how it all comes together. So I just love this game. One of the best games ever made. Great puzzles, great exploration, great monsters, great symbolism, great story. I absolutely love everything about it. I mean, there's criticisms I can make. The voice acting's not the best, but this was 2001 when games didn't really have a big budget, so I don't even blame them for that. It's hard to deal with the tank controls, but if you get on the PC version, you can get the Enhanced Edition, which is a mod that it makes the graphics better. It makes it so the controls are camera oriented instead of the tank turn left and right type of thing. So I recommend that. Not a fan of the tank controls, but in Silent Hill you got the left and right strafing, so you can at least deal with it. But you don't have to. So that's the great part about it. So yeah, it's just one of the best games ever made. Just incredible symbolism and storytelling that I think it will always be one of the best games ever made. There will be better games with better gameplay, but I don't want them to even try to remake this game because it's perfect the way it is. There are, of course, the voice acting and stuff like that maybe could be updated, but just artistically, just leave it how it is. And if they do another movie, hit your boy up. I'd love to write and direct this. Just a very faithful Silent Hill 2 adaptation. I already have a partial script. Like, I've been working on it because I just can't get this game out of my head, man. I love it so much. So that's where I'm at with it, guys. Let me know what you think about this list in the comment section down below. If you have your own list, I would love to see what you guys think, and if you agree or disagree or whatever, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Hit the sub button if you want to learn about, or hear my opinions about more horror games. We talk about TV shows, movies. I just kind of review whatever I'm interested in, but it's all about this pop culture video game stuff. So we got a lot of videos coming this week, and I hope to see you guys soon. So see you guys in the next one. Everybody have a good one.